WrestleMania 13 was the last of its kind. We were just a year away from Stone Cold versus Mr. McMahon taking over the world. We were only months away from the Montreal incident, which sent Bret Hart away to WCW. Yes, there are so many things that make WrestleMania 13 the last of its kind, especially when looking back on it. It really does seem like an odd turning of the pages, even though at the time it seemed like just another WrestleMania. This show is significant for many reasons, so without any further ado, let's get into the quick story that is WrestleMania 13. At the top of the card was Undertaker challenging Psycho Sid for the championship. Now, the road to this match was a rather tumultuous one, as Sid was the champion at the Royal Rumble 1997, where he lost it to Shawn Michaels. The original plan being a Bret versus Shawn rematch from the year prior. However, Shawn bows out and surrenders the title. From there, Bret Hart wins the title on February 16th at the In Your House Final Four pay-per-view, just to lose the title to Sid the night after on Raw. So Sid was positioned to wrestle The Undertaker, while Bret was displaced from the title scene to continue the feud with Steve Austin. So even though Undertaker won the championship from Sid in the main event of the show, this WrestleMania essentially belongs to the Hart-Austin encounter as being the talking point of the show. Bret and Austin was made a submission match with special guest referee Ken Shamrock, who was making his debut for the WWE. And by the next year's WrestleMania, Shamrock would have a match with The Rock. And like I mentioned, Bret Hart would be long gone from the company. But Austin would be, well, you know, just changing the whole wrestling landscape in 1998. Either way, even though we look back at this match fondly, it was truly the standout of a rather forgettable show overall. The Undertaker title win was nice. Something I think that gets overlooked by a lot of people that want to disparage Vince is that Vince could have forced Steve Austin to the plate too soon here, but he knew it was just a little too soon. But the way this show played out set things up perfectly for Austin to take over the world during 1997 and use that momentum on into WrestleMania 14. Was a buffer match between these two main events that I'll go ahead and mention here. We got a street fight between the Legion of Doom and Ahmed Johnson taking on the Nation of Domination. And the Nation of Domination was just kind of getting going, and it was in its very early stages. This version was a mishmash of talent featuring Farouk, Ron Simmons, Savio Vega, and Crush. This would set up the gang warfare storyline that would dominate the mid-card for the rest of the year. And the tag team title match was also slightly thrown together as the team of Vader and Mankind took on Owen Hart and the British Bulldog. Owen and Bulldog had been the champions for months as a firm heel tag team. Vader and Mankind were kind of thrown together just because they really had no other feud for both guys. It was kind of a weird match. No one really knew who to cheer for. Another match where people didn't really know who to cheer for. You had Triple H facing Goldust. Goldust had kind of turned face during this time, but this was a time where Vince first started experimenting with characters that were more shades of gray than your typical black and white heel babyface presentation of wrestling. So the seeds were definitely planted with this show that would grow the Attitude Era. Speaking of seeds of the Attitude Era, the Intercontinental title match would feature two guys that would play a huge part in that process and success, but they were in different forms, as Rocky Maivia, who we all know better as The Rock, defended his title against the Sultan, who would later transform into Rikishi. The tag team scene at this time definitely needed some revitalization, as the opening match on the card featured four of the main teams in the company, and the Godwins, the Headbangers, Doug Furnas and Philip LaFawn, and the new Blackjacks, which was JBL and Barry Windham. There was, however, a pre-show match that I would have completely forgotten about between Billy Gunn, who at this time was Rockabilly, taking on Flash Funk. So like I mentioned before, overall this was a very dismal show. It took place in the Rosemont Horizon in Chicago, Illinois, which was a throwback to WrestleMania 2, where it was one of the 3 locations for that event. The buy rate for this show was an all-time low for WrestleMania, as I have it quoted here as being a mere 237,000 buys. At least in the WWE's case, this would be definitely a case of things get darkest right before the dawn. So WrestleMania 13 is an interesting watch, especially when you have the eyes of the future, as you would never really guess how different the company would be by the time WrestleMania 14 would come around, and Bret Hart would be gone, Steve Austin would be the star, and The Rock would be ascending in the game. So many things would happen by that next year, but that is a story for another video, of course. So that's all I have for now, folks. Let me know in the comments about your memories of WrestleMania 13, as I love reading those. Please make sure you're subscribed to the channel, and we'll see you soon on Pro Wrestling Planet.